All right. Hopefully you can see a slide showing the Soll Center for Student Opportunity, which is our home. It is so wonderful for the second year in a row to be able to welcome students back in person on campus to such a wonderful office and a wonderful campus. We are so excited for the incoming class. Summers are always nice, a nice time to relax and wind down and plan for the fall. But it's about this time of year we start getting really excited, knowing that the students are going to be coming back anytime soon. In fact, there's a few of the RAs and the first year guides who are already appearing on campus. So there's a sense of real excitement and anticipation right now. But what you're looking at here is a photograph of our main downstairs office with the lobby behind, the student worker at the front desk, and hopefully a very welcoming place for your students to come and visit us. So when we talk about the Soll Center, it's named after one of our trustees, Bruce Soll, who was both a parent and sent all three of his sons to CMC. And the Soll Center for Student Opportunity houses three main areas: career services, sponsored internships and experiences, and scholar communities. And I'm going to be focusing on the first two as part of our presentation today. So career services, we are organized around an interest cluster model, which basically means rather than talking to students about what they can do necessarily with their major, we focus more on what do you want to do with your life? What are some of the intersections between industry and job and job titles that you're really interested in exploring? It creates a future-oriented focus for students, and a bunch of possibilities in terms of exploration during the time that they're at CMC and beyond. It also means that it gives students the message that their major does not have to dictate what they end up doing. They can spend 4 years studying really exciting topics with amazing professors, and at the same time, in parallel, be thinking about what would they actually like to be doing as a career after they graduate and explore along the way. So these 8 interest clusters plus grad school are the areas that CMC students tend to be most excited to explore. And, we obviously, if your student is interested in something that's not on this slide, don't panic. We are absolutely here for them and whatever they need in terms of support and connections. But these tend to be the ones where the CMC students cluster. And so we have a career coach focused on each one of these areas, who is very focused on connections with alumni and parents and employers, very focused on providing expert coaching to students and to help build those connections between the two and to other aspects of on campus where students might want to explore other pre-professional opportunities as well. All right, so I want to introduce you to a very important person. This is somebody who is about to introduce himself. This is Soll Patel. Soll joined us a year ago, and so he has a full year's worth of understanding CMC under his belt, and he is taking things to a whole new level right now. We did some surveying with first-year students and looking at their activities over a number of years, actually prior to Soll arriving, and we discovered some really interesting facts. That if your student, as a first-year student, meets with Soll, you are significantly more likely as a student to meet with other people, to attend more career events and workshops, to complete online career platform profiles such as Handshake and LinkedIn, upload a professional resume, and receive summer internship funding. It is a complete win-win to meet with Soll for half an hour. And so that's what we highly recommend. Soll's goal on his job description, it says he is trying to meet with 100% of the first year class every year. Last year, he got to 88%. So he is doing great and people really love meeting with him. So that's my introduction as to why your student should meet with Soll. And now I'm gonna let Soll kind of introduce himself a little bit and talk about some of the programming that your student can expect over the coming months.
Yeah, hello everyone. My name is Soll Patel. Thank you so much for that wonderful introduction, Ursula. So I've been here for a year, so we're really excited to have students back on campus. I know I'm personally just excited to see all the new faces and see all your students. Just a little bit a rundown of the programming, kind of generally about what we do. So the primary platform that we use is called Handshake. It's basically their one-stop shop for everything they need. So they can make appointments with me and other coaches there. They can find events on campus. They can apply to jobs, internships, etc. So we really want to highlight that, and that's something I'll talk about during orientation. We utilize VMock. So that's a system. It's like it uses AI to score your resume. So whether you have a resume as a student, whether you don't, it can really help you get that top-notch resume. And we actually have a CMC resume template that we've crafted just after talking to, hundreds, thousands of employers. And we really found out that they like a very standardized resume template. So we just went ahead and created that for students so they don't have to start all the way from scratch. We also have a variety of skill building workshops that I'll show in the next slide. We're doing a job shadow program this year, so we're actually really excited. This year it's going to be in person. We've been doing it virtual the last couple of years, and I'll explain that a bit more. And then we will also have this peers and careers panel. So that's where students get to speak to current seniors who are also like in that similar career path interest cluster model that Ursula mentioned earlier, and they get to learn firsthand from the student perspective what it's like going along those paths. And in terms of my personal communications, I send out a lot of emails to students, and one constant email I send out is the First Friday newsletter. So it's a newsletter sent out the first Friday of each month, where I basically tell them everything that they need to know and like things that are going on and stuff to that nature. So that's just a little bit of a rundown. And to get specific, on the next slide, this is kind of a step-by-step, like the chronological version of all the workshops and programming that we'll be offering for students just in the fall. So I can see like it's a pretty good amount, right? So obviously we have orientation, and then we have some of the skill building workshops I mentioned earlier. So we have talking about on-campus jobs, we have resume and cover letter. Later on, we have LinkedIn. But at the Soll Center, we're always trying to innovate and adapt to student needs. So we're trying some new things this year that we're really excited to launch. So for one, we're doing the Soll Center after hours, if you see in the middle with me. So we know that we usually work 8 a.m. to 5 p.m., but that's students aren't all awake at 8 a.m., right? So we're trying to accommodate and adapt to student need. So we're actually extending it to 5 to 8 p.m. So I'm going to be available every Monday for the first 2 months from 5 to 8 p.m. to, for students who are maybe a little bit, later risers to kind of come in and still get all the help they need. And we're also launching more some social emotional workshops. So we understand that students need support holistically, right? And not just only, solely career centered support. So, we're talking about like how to navigate rejection and stuff like that. So yeah. So that's a rundown of some of the programming that we're doing. So the job shadow program I mentioned earlier, so we're really excited to launch that. This is going to be in person this year. So it's going to be in January 2023 for a 2-week period. And it's our hosts that we actually call upon our alumni and parents. So it's a great way for students to really explore different career paths, the different interest clusters, right? Primarily first years and sophomores who haven't really got a chance to, get that in-person experience. They may learn about it, hear about it from us, but it's really different, right? When you actually go on the job. So if you are interested in hosting, Ursula's actually dropping a Google form in the chat for y'all to fill out. It has various questions on there in terms of like where you're working and, what days you might want to host. And there's more information on what a job shadow host entails. But we'd love, for our parents to really, be job shadow hosts now that we're launching in person again. So thank you for putting that in the chat, Ursula. And yeah, like I mentioned, the peers and careers. So that's, the seniors are really paying it forward. We have a panel for each interest cluster that Ursula mentioned in the few slides ago, and it's going to be pretty early on in spring. So they'll be doing the job shadow, and then they kind of go straight into the peers and careers once they get to campus. So it's a really nice transition from hearing about the job from, parents and alumni, and then hearing about that path from seniors. So yeah, it's a really good way to just get that experience and real life advice from students.
So thank you, Soll. I am now going to talk a little bit about the importance of internships and experiences. And you may already know this, I may be preaching to the choir, because I know that incoming students, when they are asked what is their number one value when coming to Claremont McKenna, the number one value is internships. So I suspect a lot of you and a lot of your students already know this, but I just wanted to remind why internships are so important and the value of them. It is literally the best way to put your education into practice before you graduate. It really does help students gain valuable work experience and skills before graduation in a way that is perceived as more meaningful potentially than just curriculum and classroom-based activities that students might be involved in. It is a very efficient way to explore a professional industry. You really want to be in a position where by the time you graduate, you've explored a couple of different pathways and figured out which areas you feel more is your fit, before you commit to a 1 year or a 2 year contract with an employer. You want to make sure that you really, as a student, are taking a well-informed and educated decision at that time. And so this really is an efficient way to use part or all of your summer to explore a professional industry. And then always the value of networking, right? If you decide that, yes, I really do enjoy working in this area, it is an excellent way to start creating that Rolodex. Although that's not a term I'm sure students are familiar with, but the idea of like starting to build some connections and people who might be able to help you as you make decisions about your career in the future. And then obviously from an employer perspective, they love seeing internships on that resume, and it provides a really competitive advantage when seeking full-time roles. Now, as a caveat to all of this, I would say sometimes it is not the right time for a first year to be having a big internship. There's a lot going on in their life. There may be some other priorities that are more important to them. So for example, we have some first year students who are like, I haven't been able to do much travel. I haven't been able to get out the house much. I have really been killing myself to like get through my senior year at high school. I need a break. And so they just want to travel. They want to hang out with friends. That's totally okay. If that's what your student needs, then that's acceptable totally. Ditto, they might be that they need to earn some cash. They want to earn some money. They had a really good business in high school that they were running, and they want to continue that business or keep bringing in some funding for themselves. That's totally okay too. And it could be that they want to focus on their academics. They actually, in the transition to CMC, very strong academically, but maybe there were some areas that they discovered they needed to work on some more, and summer school might be the way to go. So there's lots of different options for first years. But for those first years who are ready to take on an internship or some kind of structured experience, we have a great program to be able to support them. And that is the SIE Sponsored Internships and Experiences Program. So this is pretty unique. I mean, I think it's extremely unique for a liberal arts college, and it's pretty unique across higher ed in general. We have a very large budget, and I'll talk about that in a minute, to be able to support all CMC students, regardless of their financial need in pursuing summer experiences. So we all know that students often are forced to take unpaid or low paid internships, or even if they're paid well, they may be expected to live in a city such as New York or San Francisco, where the cost of living far exceeds what they are making. And there's a gap between what their income is for the summer versus what they need in order to be able to live that summer in that city. And so we are there to kind of level the playing field and make sure that all students have that opportunity, no matter what they want to do or what their background is. We do emphasize the first and the second year summers. That's predominantly due to we can't afford to pay everybody everything. So we have to make some policy decisions. We truly believe that first and second summers is the time when students need the most support. We really hope that by your junior summer that you are in a position to have a paid internship and have less need to have support from CMC to do that. We help students find internships, sometimes even design their own internships. And we also ask them to submit budgets in terms of to be able to assess. So it's not a fixed stipend. It is a budget by budget review for each student to figure out what their specific unique circumstances are and what they need. It's a great skill to get college students to start working on building a budget and figuring out how much it costs them to live. We often find that this is one of the most challenging parts of the application process because it's just such a challenging aspect for somebody who's maybe been living with family for all of their life so far. And the SIE application will open in February, but we leave it open because we understand that sometimes students take a little more time to secure their summer plans, to figure everything out. And so we leave it open until just before finals. So around beginning to middle of May is when we will have the application open. So that's the structure of how SIE is built. So what actually happened last year? Well, I say last year, this past summer 2022, we broke every record. 512 students received CMC funding, an average award of $4,500. We were able to spend $2.3 million of funds. allocated. And that's why I say this program is so unique, because I'm not sure there are many campuses that can offer that type of funding support. We sent students, there were 45 approved countries, and students ended up going to most of them. And obviously we were taking into account, you know, everything that we were learning from the State Department, CDC, around and crisis reports, in terms of making sure that we were only sending students to countries that we felt that we could support them and that they could safely get in and out. And our class breakdown, 37% of these 512 students were first years, 199 were sophomores, and 122 were juniors. So that kind of gives you an idea. So these first years are obviously rising sophomores. So we're now waiting to get back all of the reflection papers to hear about what kind of experience they had and how they benefited from what they were doing. And then on the recent outcomes, I just wanted to, it's kind of interesting, because I think most parents will assume that whatever college they send their student to, there's going to be these types of outcomes. But we're still very proud of them as a liberal arts college. 97% of alumni knew exactly what they were doing 6 months after graduation and were doing it. 82% were employed, 15% graduate professional school, only 2.8% seeking employment. That was actually a full percent lower than the previous year. So 2021 was a good year for students. We're still waiting to hear the 2022 results. We solicit surveys from the graduating class 6 months after they graduate. So we will have that data available at the end of the year in like December, January timeframe. Median salary, 73,000, not shabby. And the data for more data, if you want to dig in, do some specific hunting around, look at, we have lots of filters around gender and international versus domestic and female versus male, or a whole host of different types of things you can play around with, including major as well. Click on the list link is the way to go to be able to find out more detail and to play with the data yourself. And then on the right-hand side of the slide, we're showing 3 years comparison. As you can see, we definitely have a few industries that are more popular than others: accounting and financial services, consulting, and tech. And there's been some movement between those groups depending on what's happening in the world and how much hiring there is. But this is where students or new graduates are ending up. But there's still a healthy number of people going into creative entertainment, government, medicine, nonprofit, science. So I often hear from parents, what should I be saying to my student? Like, how can I make sure they make the most of their time, particularly their first year at CMC? And so one of the things that I have in the past, and I hope this is useful to you today, is kind of a snapshot of what the student's going to be experiencing during the next kind of 3 phases of the year. So in the fall, the absolute must do, go to the career services orientation session. It is early, it's 9 a.m. on a Saturday. It's one of the last sessions I think that they are going to be experiencing, so they might be a little tired. So do please encourage them. Jason will be leading that session. It is the best way to kind of introduce themselves to Jason, hear his high-level messages, and he will be laying out all of these other things that they can expect. And I believe it's going to be in person this year, which is fabulous. So we're very excited about that as well. So attending the career services orientation on that August 27th at 9 a.m. And then some of the other things that Jason is going to be encouraging, getting set up on Handshake, and then attending some of these workshops that could be super helpful for your first year trying to figure out how campus works and how to be successful. And then there's going to be a lot of on-campus jobs advertised where they are in desperate need of students to apply for all different types of departments across the campus. And so these are open to both students on financial aid and those students who are not on financial aid, but with preference given to the work study jobs for the students on financial aid to make sure that they get a first shot at things. JSIL is absolutely available for individual appointments, as well as if your student prefers to be in a group session. As he said, Monday evenings is the time to pop by, and I know JSIL's got some good stuff and snacks organized for those Monday evenings. And then there's going to be quite a lot of activity around Thanksgiving time to figure out, does your student want to participate in some of these job shadow visits? in those first 2 weeks of January when they're still technically on winter break. So Jason will be talking them through that process, communicating with them what they need to do for that. Over winter break, your student is probably going to be tired. I strongly recommend giving them a breather, letting them sleep, letting them catch up on themselves. And when they come up for air sometime in January, that's when you might want to help them if they want to get prepared, ready for the spring semester. So first of all, job shadowing, right? Which they'll know about, they'll know which visits they're all set up for. So, and these would all be wherever they happen to be in that month of January. And so the job shadow hosts there'll be a lot of communication back in December to help them do that. The start preparing for return to campus. So what does that mean? Maybe updating resume with stuff that they've been doing for the past 3 or 4 months, creating a LinkedIn profile, registering for those peers and careers panels that Jason was talking about, and then maybe start having conversations with you about where they're going to spend this summer. What kind of thing do they want to be doing? Are they going to be home? Are they going to be traveling? Like what? Just so that you and them are on the same page as for their first summer in terms of what they're going to be doing. And then in the spring, okay, a lot of activity getting now ready for the summer, which is brainstorming questions that you want answered about, like, what are my options in the summer? What can I do? What's this funding thing? Jason will be there as well as my colleague Garane to help them figure that out. Meet with Jason to create a plan for summer, learn about that summer funding and application process, lots of time from February to May to figure that all out, apply to internships and other opportunities. And then, as I said, the application for funding is from February to May. But in order to apply for funding, you have to have an internship or an experience in your hand, an offer letter, a description of what you're going to be doing. Like you need to have a confirmed plan, and then we can talk about the funding. The final question I often get from parents is, I can do stuff in careers, how can I help? And I'm so appreciative when parents step up and ask that question. And there's lots of ways you can help. I've kind of got this as a continuum of like the amount of effort required, depending on how much time you are able to give to this. Probably the lowest lift is if you are planning on being at family weekend in the month of February in person. We will be organizing a parent-driven event, networking event, where parents can talk to students about careers and interest clusters and all kinds of things. So that is probably the easiest. And there'll be a form coming out, an outreach sometime later in the fall, inviting parents to participate that once we know who's starting to sign up for that family weekend event. Hosting a job shadow visit, pretty easy, pretty low key. It is a way to have somebody, assuming you're in the office, have somebody come and visit. It may be 1 student, it may be 5, it may be 10 if you're a tech firm, depending on the degree of excitement from the students in that particular geographic area. And they just want to come and listen and learn and watch and ask questions. So hopefully it's a bit like bring your student to work day. So hopefully not too much of a lift in terms of the amount of time and effort it takes you to be able to do that. Participate in a career panel or networking event. These are ways for you to bring your expertise, your knowledge, your experience, and share that with students who would, I'm hoping, will be very interested to learn from that. And then we have this term expert in residence, where you're just basically signing up to say, hey, if a student just has any questions, I'm happy to jump on a phone call. 15 minutes, 30 minutes, and just talk about how to break into this area. And this isn't obviously just for first years, this is for all students, including seniors, who are sometimes pivoting and are just like trying to figure out, it's like getting all of your questions answered by somebody who's already been there and done that. It's extremely helpful for students who have a lot of questions. And then finally, if your company where you work has a job or an internship that you think a CMC student would be good for, or alternatively, if you know of a job or an internship at another company where you're like, actually, I think CMCA would be great for this, we would love to hear about that. Many of our jobs and internships are sourced by parents and alumni, and it really gives our students an added benefit compared to other campuses to be able to have these connections. And you'll see in the chat that John has helpfully put in the link to the families. So if any of you are interested in doing any of these, you can click on that link and sign up, just check a number of boxes and say, hey, these are the areas I'm interested in supporting, and we'll follow up with you. Alternatively, previously in the link, there was a specific link. If you want to, you want to do job shadow right now, you want to give your details, JSOL's provided a different form for that as well. But you could also use this form as well as a kind of start point if you want to keep things simple. That is it. So I am going to stop sharing and start opening up to questions, because I'm hoping there's a lot of questions out there in terms of, I was going through at a very fast rate, and I know that there was a lot of stuff being put into the chat to kind of get the conversation going. One question I saw.
Yeah, I have the one question here. Are parents allowed to join the August 27th event?
I think that's students only. It's way past when they've arrived on campus. So this is part of the Dean of Students orientation programming, one session out of many. And because it's in person, I don't think we're going to be recording it, unfortunately. But if you're interested in what JSOL is going to be sharing with slides with students at orientation, we could definitely make those slides available to anybody who's interested. So Felice, if that's something that you would like to get a copy of, just pop it in the chat and we can make sure that we email that to you after the slides are finalized.
Yeah, we should just point out, Ursula, that that Sunday, August 21, drop-off and parent-family orientation day. After that, the parents are pretty much expected to leave campus that evening and return for family weekend in February.
Yeah. And then thank you very much, John. And then there's a question from Rohan. Should our students set up Handshake now or when they reach campus? Well, however enthusiastic your student is. JSOL, do you want to respond to that one?
Yeah, so students have already been invited to Handshake. And during orientation, they don't have to do anything on it right now. I know it's like there's a lot of things on there. During orientation, I'm going to walk through like everything they need to know about it. And in terms of appointments, yeah, so once I'll also show them how to make an appointment with me and any other coach. It's also through Handshake. So I'll be showing all that during orientation. So again, like Ursula said, make sure your student comes to orientation.
And then in terms of JSOL, there's a second question from Rohan about do they set up an appointment or just walk in to meet with you?
Yeah, so normally, you can set up an appointment, but at times, when it's less busy, you can walk in. At worst case scenario, if you walk in and I'm already in a meeting, we have our student staff, lovely student staff there, always 2 people on shift, and they can set up an appointment for your student for another time. So either way, if they need to just walk in or do it in advance, they can do either.
Excellent. Keep these questions coming. They're great.
Jeannie, there was a question there if any of the family weekend activities are recorded, so families who can't make it to campus can.
Yeah, I was just putting that in the chat. We'll definitely well, I don't want to say definitely, but we're very much hoping that we'll be in person this year. There could be a few virtual elements. We haven't really started planning that piece specifically, or live streamed, that kind of thing. So stay tuned, because we'll definitely be discussing it and we'll let you know. We open Rebecca, what month do we open registration for family weekend? Usually
it's usually in
December. Yeah. Which isn't that far away. Which is kind of crazy.
Ursula, I was thinking, since we have a recent guinea pig with us, Josh, maybe you could tell us a little bit about the internship process that you went through when you were a CMC student.
Yeah, so hello everyone, my name is Josh Meadows. I'm a young alum from the class of 2020, and I now work full-time in the Office of Alumni and Parent Engagement, primarily getting students involved in the Alumni Association and the Alumni Experience. So it's just really awesome to see you all here and to meet your students very soon. I first stepped on campus in 2016. And I always like to tell people that I very clearly remember writing on my admissions essay that I was going to be an economics major and complete all the requirements for pre-med and go on to be the next tycoon of like medical business or whatever. And as you know, I'm very proud to be in the position I'm in now, but it is also very different than that essay I wrote. And really the reason for that is that when I first enrolled, I took time to meet with the career coaches at the Soll Center to take various internships, one of which over my sophomore year was provided by a parent, which is really fantastic. And so it's just sort of a long-winded way of saying that I really encourage you to, in a helpful parent way, nudge your parents towards the resources available in the Soll Center, whether it's meeting with Soll or Ursula as their CMC careers go on, because they are an absolutely tremendous resource. And I remember being very touched that I was going into my senior year in the pandemic and getting an email from Ursula saying, "Hey, Josh, why don't we set up a time to chat and talk about the year ahead?" So that's very cool. Something I'm very proud of, both from the alumni side and also just as a CMCer, is actually just last night, Forbes released an article saying that CMC is the top liberal arts college for basically return on your investment, which I, to say that, CMCers are doing amazing things with their degree. And really here at the college, we believe in sort of learning for the sake of doing it, going out and getting that job and getting that internship. So again, you're in amazing hands, and also happy to answer any questions, but I think my colleagues here on the call probably have it taken care of.
I love it. Josh is an example, as is John, of alumni who just do not want to leave. They stay in different capacities, different roles. And I think that's one of the messages I wanted to give was, we recently had an organization come in and review our career services and help us figure out what makes us unique, what is the area that where we tend to differentiate ourselves from different campuses. And the firm identified 3 different areas. They said, first of all, it's the customized attention, that there is an expectation that Josh will meet with every single first-year student. I have an expectation I'm going to meet with every single graduating senior and make sure they're okay as they're going through this challenging transition. So that customized attention. The second thing is connections. When we talk about the CMC community, we mean it. It is truly alive and kicking and strong. And I have never worked, I came from NYU, and this is so different in terms of the level of alumni and parent involvement and engagement in the future lives of our students is absolutely phenomenal. And then the third area is signature experiences, which I think speaks to that idea of the funding and the opportunities and the programming available to enable students to explore and to figure out what it is they want to do before or even after they graduate. It is really, truly a wonderful thing. So I'm seeing a couple of questions come into the chat. So the first one was from Kirsten. Thank you for asking about the Experts in Residence program. So it's literally you suggesting to say, hey, this is who I am, this is where I work, this is my job titles, and this is some areas where I have something to say to students. It could be that your career path, it could be the things you wish you had known before embarking. It could be, let me connect you to other people in my industry who might be useful to chat with. And so if your area is product and engineering management in the software industry, I suspect there would be a lot of students who would be very excited to talk to you. So that's really what an expert in residence is somebody who is on the end of the phone call to be able to have a chat, an informational interview, answer student questions, maybe provide some connections or some advice for them. And then Dawn, you asked a question about how do international students get an internship? Just like every other student. It is there's no difference between international or domestic students while you are still a student. Your student will have a visa status that allows them to be able to participate in any internship or experience. If they are looking specifically for some kind of return offer, particularly from their junior summer, because they're trying to figure out what their plan might look like after they graduate and what they can do with their visa status, then there might be a little bit more focus in terms of like maybe building some of those skills that they're looking for, because they know those are the skills they're going to want to if they want to stay in the US after they graduate. But no, it's no difference between international and others. In fact, when you look at that, the outcomes slides that I gave earlier, international students actually do better when it comes to placements, grad school acceptance. Like they are on a mission to make sure that their experience at CMC ends very well for them. And so the percentages tend to be even more positive for for international students and domestic students. So I feel we have some support in terms of platforms and resources for international students specifically, but in general, we treat them like any other student, particularly as a first and second year summers in terms of helping them figure things out. Any other questions out there? Well, Jaisal, any closing words? Because you're going to be the person who students are going to be interacting with starting very soon.
Yeah, all I'll say is, excited to meet y'all students, and I, please encourage them to come to the orientation, 9 a.m. August 27th on a Saturday, and I'll take it from there. And then I hope y'all trust that, they're in good hands.
I can say that they're going to be in good hands.
Well, thank you everyone for coming today. And as I said at the top of the program, this is the last of our virtual sessions until August 21st, when we are excited to welcome hopefully many of you, most of you, to campus. If you have not had a chance to register yet, I'm putting that in the chat now. You'll save yourself a ton of time if you register ahead of time, and your name tags will be waiting for you and your tickets for lunch. So take a moment to do that. And if any questions pop up, feel free to email me or parents@cmc.edu. I'll get them over to Ursula, and she can, you two can go through that via email. So don't worry if you forget something after we get off the call here today. Thank you again.